Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining the long-awaited hints and tips presentation that we've been missing out on for the last year. Many of you may know me as the support desk manager here at Meditech. If you're already live with Priority, we've probably spoken. If you're going live with Priority, if we haven't spoken yet, I'm sure we will, with time once you go live. I'm hoping this presentation will appeal to everyone in the room. I'm sure from the most basic to the most advanced user, you should hopefully learn something new. If you don't learn anything new from it, I challenge you to contact me and I will find something that you don't know and tell you. So what I'd like to cover with you all today is a few day-to-day user tips for your everyday Priority user, day-to-day use of the system, maybe things you know, maybe things you don't know. I will cover a few advanced user tips which will appeal more to our sort of developer-type users. And then we will cover some common service calls that we get raised on support, sort of common issues that people will come across while using Priority. So first thing I'd like to talk about is business rules and autofill rules. James did say that at this point in the day, maybe some of the things we were talking about have already been shown, but I would like to touch on it. Business rules and autofill rules have had a bit of a facelift in the latest version. Ian has already covered that and shown you the nice new interface. What I really want to hone in on with business rules and autofill rules is what they can do for you and maybe some facts about them that you don't know. So at the moment, business rules allow you to trigger emails, warning messages, emails, push notifications even on the mobile app. They can even be linked to webhooks, and they can alert you based on data that happens, that gets entered into the system. Autofill rules are actually just as they're described. It's what it says on the tin, really. With an autofill rule, it's data entered based on data. So if there's always going to be X data based on previous data that was entered, you will set a rule up. For example, when an order is placed for a certain customer, the details will always be filled in as a certain phrase. I will show you that in a minute anyway. So the main point about business rules and autofill rules are to save you from making mistakes, to validate what you're putting in, to make you a bit more efficient, pretty much make it so that you're not having to spend a lot of time doing the same thing over and over, like repetitively. So if I just switch to my Priority, can you see? Yeah. So this is the new look business rules. So if I say if the value of the customer number is equal to me, because I'm a customer in this system, then I would like to actually trigger an email based on that to me. Or rather, we'll email Phil when an order gets placed. Now, the thing that most people don't necessarily know about business rules and autofill rules is that they're not always set by your system manager. So for the most part, if there's something that applies to your whole business, your system manager will be setting these rules up and applying them to everyone in all companies. But you can actually set them for just yourself. Any user will have the ability to set these rules up for themselves. So if there is something that only you do, that you've noticed that you're repetitively doing, or you need an alert for, need an email for, need a warning message for, you can actually come in here and set this up yourself. So you don't need to wait, you don't need to ask someone, you can come and do it, and it will save you time and effort. So, for example, I could just set this email for myself. In fact, it would make more sense to just email myself, I am interested particularly when this customer places an order. Email. It's not, what's it? What have I, scroll down. Thank you. Of course, I have to write what needs to go into the email. And of course, as you may or may not know, you can add fields and columns and things into the email. Still won't let me save it, but we'll move on. The other option is obviously autofill rules. So I could say something along the lines of, put the details as, this order is very important when a particular customer makes an order. So moving on to the next hints and tip, I am going to talk to you about help. I bring this up in every hints and tips presentation, but only because it's so important and it's constantly being improved. So the help within Priority is not just like around the system and contextual, it's also online. So you have the option of pressing F1 wherever you are in the system, whether you're on a field in a form, whether you are right-clicking on the menu and selecting the help option, whether you're right-clicking on an action or a sub-level, there is built-in help, which the developers, either at Priority or developers who have developed something and added help text as they've gone, have added, and you will be able to see that as you go. Now, there's also the online help. So online help is available also contextually around the system. There is a help button on every form. And you can click that and you will see a consolidated amount of help taken from the online expert portal, internal help, and any videos and FAQs and things that are available relative to what you've clicked on. So let me just show you that because it's easier if you can see it. So first things first, F1. Wherever you are, I'm on a column, I press F1. I've got some help, it explains what the field is. You can actually do Control F1, which brings up the help. This panel in the given form will give you, therefore, the internal help at the top, any videos that are available, any SOPs, which stands for Standard Operating Procedures, FAQs, and hyperlinks to go to them and view more. So essentially what will happen, if you click on Show More, you get the full list, and you can download a PDF of each one. You can also access this from the Help menu at the top right of every form. Same thing. There's also, in addition to that, this Help menu at the top right. So this gives you a bit more. This is your full help rather than contextual help. So if you want general help, you have a guide in here that gives you your keyboard shortcuts and sort of wizardry that goes with icons, keys, and shortcuts. You have the user interface guide, which is your full-on start-to-finish guide of all the buttons and layout and everything in Priority and how to use it. And then the other important thing is the Priority Expert. Now, clicking on this link will take you straight away to the expert page. This is something that the team at Priority Software have been building, improving, adding to all the time. It's a complete database of standard operating procedures and FAQs and videos. And it's a really good place to start if you are trying to get in depth with something, especially if you're trying to introduce a new feature or a new piece of functionality, you're trying to roll out something, a new module. There will be documentation to get you started in here. So it's always recommended that you give this a try and you see what you can find and learn by yourself. And at the point where you need help, then you can contact us and we will be happy to help you. Okay, so the next thing I'd like to talk about is tracking document changes and history of statuses and changes. So this is a feature, it's been around for a few versions now, but I find people I talk to, maybe on the support desk, raising service calls, maybe are inquiring about this sort of thing and not realizing they already have it. So this is why I wanted to bring it up in this presentation. So any document in Priority has a bell icon. You can see here in my middle screenshot. You can subscribe to any particular document. So say there's a really important order, and I want to subscribe because I want to know as soon as something happens, as soon as the status changes, as soon as something changes. You can click on the bell icon, you can subscribe to the changes, and you will get an email when something changes on that document. You will also get a notification at the top of your screen, which you can also see. I have a bell icon at the very top. That will give you notifications on the interface without you having to check your emails. And you can go into those notifications and actually include other people if you want to drag one of your colleagues into it as well and get them notified. So it's quite useful. You can untrack at any time by going back on the same order or the same document and unclicking the bell icon. In addition to that, there is a new button. If I just tab back out. One moment. Let's query for my order I made earlier. There's a new button you can see on the, you can see it on the right of the screen. You could just about see it on that one. It's the history button. This is new. This gives you the history of statuses and the history of changes in two different tabs. Now, this order is new, nothing has happened, apart from me creating it, but you can see that in the history of statuses. Previous to this, you would have to navigate on each form that you're on to the particular sub-levels called history of statuses and history of changes. But now you've got it all in one place. So the next day-to-day user tip would be to look at the recommendations that pop up. So on the latest couple of versions of Priority, going very much in line with the AI conversation that's been happening, Priority monitors what you're looking at, monitors what you're using, what you're not using, and it will pop up with recommendations, sometimes on the home screen, sometimes on the form that you're working in, and it will say, hey, we've noticed you're not using these things. Do you want to hide them? Or, hey, we noticed you use this thing a lot. Do you want to put it on your home screen? Sometimes it even realizes you've made the same query a bunch of times manually, and it says, do you want to just set up a safe search? And what I'd recommend to you is don't disregard it as a pop-up. Actually read what it's saying and take into consideration. I'm guilty of it myself, but I see it all the time when I'm connected with people. You kind of dismiss it because you're busy. You're doing something else. The pop-up comes up. But actually, this is so useful because it is based on your data. If you're not using something or you're using something a lot, you should take this. It's a time safe. So you should, it's a click of a button with the suggestion. You should click it and just let it do the work for you. So the next tip I would like to talk about, back and forth, is how to search more effectively. This one often comes up in my hints and tips presentations as well, but not usually in this sort of aspect. Usually I'm talking to you about all the different searches that are available, which hopefully soon to be all in one place. What I'm focusing on this occasion is the actual search that searches based on your data. I think it's known as the enterprise search. So if I just tab and show you, the search that you find at the top of your screen, or if you're on the home screen, it's over here. So this is the search. It searches through your data if you've got it set up. If you don't, please get it set up. You can contact support. We will help you. So I could search in here for, this is a bit random, but I could search for Apple. And it gives me 3 results. So I've got, this is searching through some remarks on some orders that I've got. So I've got Apple, I've got apple tree, and I've got apple pie. Now, what I really am interested in is if I search for something in quotes, so for example, apple pie, it will only find the result that specifically has this exact phrase, so apple pie. Now, what I could also do is apple minus pie. Now, what this will do is it will find me all of the results with the word apple, but without the one that has the word pie in it as well. And you can use plus for the same sort of functionality. So if you want to search for a word that with a result that only has another word included, you can have plus. So these are two useful things. It's really more relevant if you're searching for data that's got a lot of remarks and a lot of details in, rather than like your just standard customer names or phone numbers, because those don't really change. I find this is useful in my real-world application when I'm searching through old service calls and I'm trying to find a particular scenario that's happened before. You would be maybe not surprised how many service calls have the word invoice in it. Right, date and numeric fields. This is another surprising feature that has been around for some time, but actually the amount of times I watch people type today's date in a field is amazing. If you are in an empty form, in priority, I go to the date field, I press the minus key, and it gives me today's date. So minus and plus, they will put today's date in. Now, they will also give you your username if you're in an assigned to column. So if I go to, I can't find assigned to, where are you? If you see it, shout. Has it gone? There it is, yay. Minus, puts my name in it. So this is great if you're reporting hours on a project or if you're opening service calls and it's work you're doing. Don't keep typing today's date, don't keep typing your username, just use minus and plus. Another thing, when you've already got data in one of these fields, you can actually use minus and plus to plus and minus the date. So you don't have to keep typing it in. That also works with quantity fields. So if you've got quantities on a line on a document, you can use plus and minus to increase and decrease it without having to type it again. Have I missed one? Bear with me. Well, I wanted to mention the Part Explorer. Don't know where my slide has gone, but I will just mention it because I really want to. The Part Explorer is an option that you have when you're on an itemized document where you're searching for a part and you are maintaining part specs. You can actually press, I think it's Shift and F6, and it will pull up a Part Explorer screen, and it will allow you to filter your parts by specification. So that's really useful when you don't know a part number, but you know how big it is and what color it is. So you can filter by that, and if you are interested in more information or to see it, then contact me and I will follow up with you. Moving on to our more advanced hints and tips. These are actually really exciting, and I've had a couple of people come up and say, well, are you talking about this? Like, yeah, I am. I am talking about this. So the first, these are applicable to anyone who's sort of getting into the development side of Priority, which I know actually there are quite a few of you here that I know are either looking into doing that or are already into that. The first thing is the quality mode, QA equals 2. So switch back to my system and I will show you exactly what I mean. So if you add a query string on the end of your Priority URL, !_QA equals 2, and then you log into Priority, you enter in quality mode. I like to call it quality mode, but Priority Software may correct me. Maybe it's not called that. Quality mode. If you go into any form, you will notice that now at the top here, where my mouse is, you've got the entity name of the form you're in. And if you notice down the bottom half of the screen, you actually have the column name of the column you're highlighted on. So if I move around, you'll see it changes. So that is really useful when you're trying to spec a development, or if you're trying to develop something and you want to make sure your development is using the correct column and form name. The other thing that's really useful that, surprisingly, I only learnt about it recently and I've used it so much since, if you do Control Q, wherever you are, it will open the form generator for the form that you're in. Now this is really useful because if I do the old method, it's not that old, of F6ing on something in the menu, say sales orders, you get more than one result. How do you know which one it is? You have to look at them how it's linked. Control Q is the way forward. Please use Control Q. Another advanced topic I'd like to talk about does also apply to day-to-day users in some aspects. So I want to talk to you about testing. There are sort of three main types of testing we come across on a day-to-day basis. On support, that is testing a new version of the system, like an upgrade, which actually I can see people in the audience who are going through this at the moment or have just been through it or are about to. Testing of developments, whether that's a development you've made in-house, whether that's a development that Meditech has done for you, or even the testing of new features. So new features either that have been introduced that you haven't used yet, or a new module, or new process that's even something standard in Priority that you never used before. So there's quite a few considerations to be made as part of this. So the main thing that you have to bear in mind, especially for upgrade testing, is get your whole process mapped out. Come up with some use cases, maybe even run your upgraded system side by side with your live system and do every single thing the same. So if you're putting in a real life order or doing a real life transaction in your live system, put the same transaction into your upgraded test system. What that means is you kind of get to capture every scenario that goes on and not have to think about it. The other thing could be coming up with some use cases, or at least a list of use cases, maybe even in a document somewhere, so that when you upgrade, you can tick these off and make sure that even the most complicated scenario that you might come across is already accounted for. In terms of testing developments, this is something that if Meditech have created a development for you, we've already done the functional testing. It should work functionally, as in it won't error. But what we don't have is your in-depth knowledge of your data and your processes and your business. So when a development's handed over to you to test, you really need to stress test it with your own data and your own processes just to make sure it is working exactly how you would expect. In terms of new features, new processes, new functionality, the best thing you can do is to have a copy of your live system. You can create a copy of your live environment as a separate company within your live server, or you can have a refreshed test server with a recent copy of your live system. Whichever it is, as long as you've got a copy that you can test, run through, be happy with before you implement and train people on that in the live company, then you should be good. And it's really recommended that you thoroughly test a new process and sort of stress test it with at least one or two of your key users before you roll it out to everyone else. I'd like to move on and just talk about a few of our common issues that we see on the support desk. The first one is about the mobile app. Mobile app is great. We've got many, many of you using it. But there are quite a lot of service calls we get where someone's just trying to use it and it's not quite set up. So I just wanted to highlight the few key things that really need to be in place for someone to be able to use the mobile app. So the first thing is you need to have a license sorted out for the user, whether or not the user has a separate specific app-only license, whether they're using the mobile app as part of their full license that they've already got. You still have to put their name against the mobile app under the applications for license form, which is what I've put a screenshot of how to get to. Now, once the user's got a license, they also have to be provided with a QR code for the app. Presumably, the app's already generated if someone in your business is using it. But quite often, users will download the Priority Mobile app from the Apple Store or the Play Store, and there won't be anything on it. And that's because you need the QR code. That's not always immediately obvious. Third thing to consider is network. So if your priority is behind your firewall, inside your network and not accessible outside of your network, then the mobile device that's you're accessing the app on also has to be on that same network. So you might need to put in the VPN. You might need to make sure that it's being used within the office on the office network. However you may need to organize that, you do need to make sure it's on the same network. If your priority is accessible outside of your network, that's not going to be a problem. And the final point I'd like to make on the mobile app is keep your app updated. You may want to or may have already the automatic updates turned on, but if you don't, especially if you're having some sort of problem, make sure that you update the app and check it. So next item on the list is scheduled tasks not running. So this does happen probably more, I can't say how often, maybe once or twice in a month we'll get a service call, and it's usually someone whose MRP hasn't run. And the reason people notice that one first is because it's such a big process to run. It runs overnight, it probably takes a long time, and you're waiting for that data in the morning to be able to do your job. I get it, I really do. What we really need to know from a support point of view when this sort of thing happens is it just one task that's failed? If MRP hasn't run, have other things that you'd expect to run overnight ran? Have you had a power outage or a server problem or a network fallout overnight? Have you had some passwords changed? Because there is a service that runs the scheduler, and it needs to be able to stay running, it needs to be able to log in. Another thing that's useful to know is if everything is looking okay since, or whether you think things are still not running. There is a form called List of Recent Processes where you can see what's been running, and that's also a sub-level of the task scheduler form. And then, regardless of that, if you realise it's not something on your network and things are not running, that's at the point you'd probably want to raise a service call. The other point to make is that if it's only tasks that send an email that aren't working, then it could well be to do with your emails not working and not the scheduler itself, which I will come on to with my next slide. So another common service call we get is actually my email's not sending. So emails can either be generated server-side or user-side. So you might be generating emails from the task scheduler with a report that runs every night and emails a bunch of people. You might actually be generating business rules and BPM rules on the fly as transactions happen, which actually get sent from the user's workstation. So first we would need to establish, is it your server-side emails that are not working, or is it your user-side emails not working? If it's server-side, it's most likely a change in the 365 account. Maybe someone's changed the security settings or changed the password, and we just need to put it in again. If it's the user side, then it's more than likely going to be the plugin's not installed correctly or the extension's not added in the browser. Those are the common solutions to it. Anything beyond that, raise a service call, we will have to have a look at it with you and get that working again. And finally, probably the fourth most common service call we get is my priority's running slowly. What we really need to understand when this happens, because it could be a variety of different reasons. Every single case I've seen of this is something different. We need to know if it's all of your users that are affected. Is it just some? Is everything slow? Is it just some things that are slow? Are other things on your network slow? If you can narrow it down and say, actually, priority is slow, and it's slow for everyone, and other things on our network are not slow, then we need to understand, is it perhaps someone running a really large report that's going to try and build 20 years worth of data into a report, and it's just taking up a lot of your server processing, which you can check from a list of recent processes, or we can help you look and see if that is the case. If it's still not clear, Then there is an option, I will tab actually and show you this, under Run, check operating speed is a feature that you've got available to you, and it will show you the entities that you've recently opened and how long it's taken at each step of its process to run. So if you are experiencing slowness and you are raising a ticket with us, it's really useful if you could open this, use the clear button to clear it, do a couple of actions just so we don't have a whole load of pages of data, and then give us a screenshot of that. The other option we've got is also AimBetter monitoring. We work with AimBetter software, which is a monitoring software that we plug into your server and database, and it can kind of give us more of an idea of what's going on with the inner workings of your processes if you are continuing to have any sort of performance impact. I know this is something we put on a temporary basis, get the information we need, make improvements, and then move it on. Thank you for listening to my presentation. I hope you've all learned something new. Thank you.